Welcome to a rather windy and cool Bukhara here in Uzbekistan. The plan today is to go for a bit of a walk around. I want to take a few of the back streets, but also pass some of the tourist zones as well, just to get a feel for what it's like in the back streets where the locals are doing things. Maybe visit a coffee shop that I've spotted on the map there, and just see what it's like in general. But look at that, beautiful view this morning. Let's get stuck in. First thing I'm going to do is turn the wrong way out my guest house and see where this leads. If I go that way, I know I'm straight into the middle of the main tourist zone. And I just want to see what's going on in this direction here. Hello. A bit of construction going on. It seems this town, I walked through last night to get some dinner, and it seems to be, it was an interesting feeling to this particular city. There's been a lot of construction over the years. It's not going on now, but it seems to be very, very well developed. And I don't mean in a modern city style, but the style of the buildings is older style, but very polished and clean. Might head down this way. Very polished and clean and neat and tidy. It seems though they've done that, I guess, to make it a pleasant place to visit. The problem with some of that is that you lose part of the soul of the place, I believe, when you overdo that. They've tried to retain the character by making sure the architecture is all the same as what it used to be back in the 1400s or what have you. But sometimes, for me, it doesn't feel quite right. And I think, I'll go down this one. There's a little road down here. I think for me, what happens is you lose a bit of the soul of the place. I'm not 100% sure of that in the case of Bukhara yet, because I really haven't got a good feel for it. But just last night I thought, I'm not sure about this. There seems to be a heavy focus on tourism there. That's what we like to see. Head down some few back streets and you come across something like that. Well, that's beautiful, isn't it? We'll go and see what it says on the little plaque here about what this place is. Okay, architectural monument, Turki Candi Mausoleum from the 1600s. Beautiful. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Beautiful, beautiful mausoleum. Oh, they've got signs here as well. So this is for people who want to get out of the main tourist centre and have a look around. I guess there's mosques and things around here. What this town's really famous for is, again, a lot of that Islamic culture from the mid, sort of like 13 to 1100 right through to sort of the 1800s. And there's a lot of it here. Okay, we've stumbled upon a little market here. This guy's selling some stuff. Look at this. Little hardware supplies. Oh, knives, axe. Little cool stuff there. All right. Little stuff. I seem to be getting into some sort of market area down here, which is nice. That wasn't the plan, but you always sort of stumble upon something good if you go the wrong way out of your hotel. Unless it's a dead end, of course. Getting back to that story about sometimes a place feels very touristy, and I am a tourist. So it's a little bit ironic that I don't want to go to a tourist place. And I think this is a subtlety that a lot of people don't understand. As tourists, we want authenticity. We don't want manufactured things. We don't want things to be too polished. Otherwise, we may as well just go to Disneyland. Because honestly, if you want something very, very polished and very perfect, you go to Disneyland and you love it. You can really enjoy yourself at Disneyland. But you don't want that when you're going to a place that we know has true authenticity. And places can sort of ruin themselves a little bit if they manufacture their if they try and manufacture authenticity. You can't manufacture it. It comes organically. And usually it comes organically from the people. Hang on, I've got a bazaar here. All right, we're going to have to go in that. We're definitely going in that. Let's have a bit of a look around, see what's going on in there. Dude's asking for money. That's pretty normal, isn't it? All right, here we go. Oh yeah. It's a little cart with bread on it. Oh yeah, bread sellers. Oh, nice. Oh, nice produce there. Interesting. I did see something over here that was interesting, the ayran. Big bottles of ayran. Look at that. Produced at home. If you've seen my previous videos, you know I'm not a big fan of ayran. Not a big fan of ayran at all. That salted milk product, really. Not a fan of it. There's a bread shop in the corner over there. Yeah? What's that? This guy's angry. What? This guy's getting angry at me. Oh dear. You get angry. Oh dear. Guy gets angry, waving his arms around. Absolutely, I've got no problem with that. All right, we'll get out of here. Oh, there's some nice cheese there. This dude's selling all these cheeses. Look at that, beautiful cheeses and creams. Oh, look at that cream in there. I actually had a cream product on some local sort of crepes earlier on in the trip, and it was absolutely beautiful. They called it cheese, but it sort of tasted like a cream, or yeah, sometimes you get cream that's so thick that it could be a cheese. You know, like mascarpone they call cheese, but yeah, it's sort of like a bit like cream. Interestingly, earlier, just before in the video, I greeted a lady with the greeting of Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, it's an Islamic greeting. And I actually get tongue-tied a lot when I say it, especially if you try and say it fast. It sometimes comes out wrong. People get the general idea. And there are certain variations on how you say that in the Islamic world as well. Different slight, vowels are slightly different or whatever. And it is said in Indonesia as well. Usually your response to that is Walaikum salam. But she responded to me with Assalamu alaikum, which I thought was wrong. So it was something, like, she's local, like she knows what the story is. So my understanding of how that is usually said must be wrong. Anyway, that is used in Indonesia a lot as well. But as a tourist, especially a non-Muslim tourist, it would be quite odd in Indonesia for us to go and say that to a local as a greeting. Like, they just don't do it. It's not right. It's not the done thing. It just feels a little bit forced. Whereas here, my understanding is that it's quite normal. It's the national greeting, if you like. And of course, in Indonesia, you don't know most of the time who you're speaking to, whether they're Muslim or not. Now, even on the island of Java, there are tens of millions of non-Muslims living there. And you often don't know who's who. Unless, if someone's wearing a headscarf, of course, they're a Muslim. Or if you're walking into a mosque, you know they're going to be a Muslim. But yeah, so you just don't go throwing that around in Indonesia like you might here. And I guess a good example of that is I've said that phrase here in Uzbekistan more than I've ever said it in my whole entire 14 years in Indonesia. So that gives you an idea of how uncommon it is in Indonesia, unless you're in particular specific circumstances, at which stage it is definitely said. Quite beautiful in these back streets, quite beautiful. I really like the back streets, especially at this time of the morning. I'm up earlier than most people. It seems like most of the coffee shops and so forth open a little bit later here. I guess tourists aren't really going out and going for a coffee this early, so I'm having to scratch around to find a place at the moment. Okay, in the distance I've spotted a turquoise domed structure there that I might just go and have a quick look at. No idea what it is. Obviously significant in some way because it looks well preserved. I've got a funny feeling you might need to pay to get into some of these places, and I haven't brought my wallet with me this morning, so that's going to be a problem if I need to pay to get into some of this stuff. Well, that's quite nice up there. Yeah, okay, that's really nice. Up towards that dome, which is up there. Beautiful, beautiful. I'm actually into, I'm I'm actually into the main tourist zone right now. So I came up some of those back streets, back into the main tourist zone. And I'll explain what I feel about the main tourist zone here, because I am quite torn about it, because it is absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. There are pieces of art around the place and sculptures, and the lighting is just magnificent around here. If you come through here at night, it is just glorious. And it's really just so neat and tidy, paved just perfectly. And it sort of retains the same sort of architecture that perhaps would have been here many hundreds of years ago. And you then have these old buildings like this one here. This looks like an old mosque, which I'll go up and show you. Sort of plonked in the middle of it, and they blend quite well, even though this one's crumbling a bit. The style blends quite well, and it's actually done quite well in that way. This mosque, from the 1100s right through to the 1500s. Beautiful, beautiful. Wow, that is nice. That is a nice old structure, really nice old structure. That's sort of a different perspective. Oh look, are they Indian miners, or what sort of birds are they? They're those brown ones, those brown invasive species we have in Australia. I've got them here too, they're everywhere. Yeah, so I'll just go and sort of whip around a few other little bits and pieces around here while I sort of talk about how I feel about it. Coming up to another structure over here. This is all like World Heritage stuff. This stuff. Yeah, I guess the other point about this is that when you try really hard to make things authentic, they become inauthentic. For example, in this area, there are no vehicles allowed, no motorbikes, no taxis. And that also means there's no trading allowed, there's no markets, and it's basically devoid of locals almost altogether. Well, this is a beautiful structure. Beautiful. These buildings are just spectacular, absolutely spectacular. Yeah, so for example, getting the taxi last night, they drop you off 500 metres from your hotel because taxis aren't allowed inside. They don't want the place to be destroyed by locals, which really, I mean, it's nice as a tourist to walk around a place without vehicles. Honestly, that sort of pedestrian zone is really nice. But you do lose a lot because of it. You know, if you go to somewhere like Mexico, into Mexico City, and you walk around their archaeological sites, you walk outside of that archaeological site straight into the most bustling market you can imagine, you know, getting mobbed by sellers selling you, you know, drinks or clothing items, and there's cabs and there's traffic jams, and there's something a bit gritty, grimy and authentic about it, which can be annoying for some people, but for me, gives it a place, real character, real soul, and real value, real reasons to go there. It's the real life, and that's what I want to see. I want to see reality. Oh, wow, going up to something really amazing here that I absolutely must show you. On the left here, it looks like some sort of old madrasa, which looks spectacular in itself. Absolutely spectacular in itself. But then on this side, this one is even more impressive. You just look at that up there. So beautiful. It's from 1651. And look at that. Isn't that impressive? Really beautiful. Really beautiful. I mean, this is what we're here for, isn't it? We're here for the old buildings that still retain a lot of the soul and the character of the place. Absolutely spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. Right next door, I'll give you an example of what I was talking about. Right next door to that big madrasa there is this building here. It is beautiful, a beautiful, beautiful building. Really well done. Some carpets hanging over the side. I think it's probably a gift shop or a restaurant or something like that. And it really fits the style of this place so well. It's just a modern or a newer version of it. The problem is, it looks too modern. I don't know what it is. I mean, It almost sounds like a stupid thing to say. In a lot of ways it really does, but there's a certain feeling about this sort of stuff that you can't quantify. It's really interesting experience. I have felt this before in some places in the world. You sometimes go places and you feel that on their own they are spectacular and governments could use a lighter touch. Sometimes that happens, not always, but sometimes. And sometimes the government has such a light touch, they don't do anything that makes the tourist experience quite poor. And you think, geez, if they just put a few little modifications, it'd be much better. It's difficult. I must say it's difficult for governments to get these things right. Just out of the tourist area, it gets very local again, very local. Like, this is literally 100 metres off the tourist zone. You're into this. So I guess you can have both, the best of both worlds really. Even these side streets are all busted up and dirty, and there's a real character and a realness, authenticity to it. And there's locals going about their business, buying bread on their little bicycles. I like that. That's the sort of style that I prefer. Interestingly, on the left and right of the road, you've got those elevated poles, elevated pipes, and they appear to be carrying, I think, well, it's either water or natural gas. I can see these valves. Actually, that looks like a big valve for natural gas. So that looks more like a water arrangement, doesn't it? Yeah, looks like water. They do have a lot of natural gas here in Uzbekistan. They're really blessed with giant reserves of natural gas, and that's why they use it in their cars to power their cars. Yeah, but this certainly does seem to be water. I can see a lot of pipes coming out of there, and they don't look like they're sort of high pressure pipes or anything like that. Just spotted this old car. Look at that. Isn't that a beauty? Oh, that is a good looking car as well. Nice interior upholstery. Beautiful. What is that? Zaz. I'm not even sure what brand that is. Looks like some sort of ex-Soviet type arrangement. 968M. You don't actually see a lot of old Soviet era cars here, which is a little bit interesting. You see a few Ladas, those old, well, there was just one main car that the Russians produced for a very long time. You see a few of those around. You actually see a few of those around in some of the Eastern Bloc states as well. Something like Moldova, you'll see some, very few, because obviously the years have gone by and haven't been very kind to those sorts of vehicles. But aside from that, the main vehicle I'm seeing mostly in Uzbekistan is Chevy. So apparently Chevy have a partnership with some local company here to produce cars, and they have 80% of the market share. And there's one model that has 43% of the market share. So there's one dominant model, and all the taxis use that same model. I actually, on a day trip the other day, got a taxi, and I actually nearly got back in the wrong one because they all look the same, like identical white Chevy Cobalts. The cost of one of those vehicles here costs from about, I was told, about 15,000 Australian dollars or about 9,000 US dollars, which is really just so dirt cheap for a car. Like, it's got airbags in it, for example. Like, it's not a total bomb. Like, they're modern and they feel good, and they don't, they're Chevys, so they're okay. There's one of those Ladas I was just talking about. This guy's done up his with some nice sporty wheels. That's pretty cool. I think Lada tried to bring some vehicles into Australia at one point. I don't think they did very well. They had like the lowest safety rating ever on record, and they were cheap, but I don't think they were very good. I'm now what sort of feels like I'm quite a long way out of the tourist zone. It feels very, very, very local style. There's this beautiful mosque here, which I'm sure is part of the standard tourist trail, and it would have to be because it's so beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It's got these gold domed minarets up there. So beautiful. Oh, hello. Yeah, quite nice. Quite nice. Maybe later in the day this gets really busy with visitors coming around here. But even if it did, it wouldn't really matter because it is in a residential area and it is quite beautiful, tucked in between the houses here. I'm actually still en route to try and get to that coffee shop I was looking for. Well, originally I had one coffee shop in mind and it doesn't open until 9:30. So I had to sort of change my plans and look for another one, which is what we're doing now. That sort of brings me to thoughts of why do we travel? Why do we travel? And it's interesting because people are traveling for all sorts of different reasons, and it sometimes changes the more you travel or the more time you have to travel or what have you, and sometimes the older you get as well. Sometimes you see a lot of younger people these days especially traveling to get a photo of a place. So tick, 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 and they've got all the main spots and that's their holiday and they're very happy to do it. It's not my style, but it's their style, and that's a valid way to travel. Other people want to do the tick, tick, tick thing, but not necessarily go and get photos. They just want to say they've been there. Again, that's not really my thing either. I'm just as happy to go to Paris and find a random bakery and eat a croissant. Well, I'm happier to do that than look at the Eiffel Tower, because for me, I've seen the Eiffel Tower in photos. I don't need to go and experience it. And you know what? When you get to the Eiffel Tower, it's surrounded by the worst form of tourism you can ever imagine. It's terrible. And you're likely to get pickpocketed as well. So, you know, that's sort of a metaphor for what really tourism means for me. I don't want to go there just to say I've been to the Eiffel Tower. And it's the same for a place like this. I don't want to come here and say, I've seen XYZ mosques and madrasas and they look great, and then I'm out of there. It's not what I'm here for. So what do I travel for? Well, it's really simple for me. Authenticity. I want an authentic experience. And if that means going to a coffee shop and just sitting there and having a coffee and a pastry, that's good enough for me. Like, honestly, I don't have to see a lot of things. Things are nice, you know, a view is nice and I do enjoy that, but I just want a real local experience. Now, when I go hiking in a place like Spain or in Japan, I'm looking for authenticity as well, and you generally get it. You can get it in spades, especially in a place like Spain where even though there are lots of tourists, the locals generally don't speak a lot of English. You're definitely going to get some authentic experiences there. And it's really nice. Same as in Japan. You know, if I go hiking in a remote area of Japan, it's about as authentic as you can get. You hike for a day, you get to a new town, have a nice hotel experience, have something to eat at one of the local eateries, and I'm happy. You know, I've experienced something a little bit different, learned something new for the day. Yeah, I've seen a few great views along the way, but I'm not overcrowded with other people doing the same thing where you're sort of getting shuttled from one place to another. I've almost reached my destination for today, which is a local coffee shop. And look, I really appreciate you coming along with me today on a walk through the streets of Bukhara. I saw probably one or two other tourists on this whole walk, which was beautiful, beautiful. I felt like I was alone, and that was because of the time and some of the streets that I chose to walk down. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with all things Indonesia, and at the moment, Central Asia, as we continue our journey along the Silk Road. I'll catch you next time, and sampai jumpa.